Do you want to know how to set up your own cloud storage system that you have more control over than you would in Google Drive or OneDrive, for example? If so, stay tuned, because today we're going to set up OwnCloud on Ubuntu 20. Now, OwnCloud is a file sharing cloud-based program that's built on top of Linux, and it's very versatile. You can have granular control over who you give access to and how much space they have and how they can access the documents, and you can make it even more secure by self-hosting it on your own server, whether it be a cloud server or a on-premise server. And they have a ton of documents and guides to help you through on any type of unique server situation that you may have. But for our example today, we're going to do it on top of a cloud-based server built in Linode. This is not a sponsored video in any way. I'm just a big fan of Linode, and I'm a big fan of how OwnCloud works. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to Linode, and if you don't already have an account, you're going to sign up. And once you sign in, we're going to create a Linode. We're going to do Ubuntu 20.04. Now, OwnCloud does have instructions for Ubuntu 22. If you want to do that instead, you just have to go up and look up the install instructions for it on OwnCloud. They do not have install instructions for 23.10 at the moment of this filming. But today we're going to do Ubuntu 20.04. We're going to select a region close to me so that it will be faster. And for OwnCloud, you can do shared CPU, and you can do a 4 gigabyte Linode. And I'm going to name this OwnCloud because I have other Linodes running. I'm going to give it a root password, and then I'm going to leave everything else default, and I'm going to create. So once it shows everything up and running and you have a login screen, I will go and copy the SSH command for logging in, and then go to my terminal, and I'll log in from my terminal. Now the steps we're going over today is going to assume that you are the root user, and this is a fresh install of Ubuntu 20.04. And since this is a fresh install, there's going to be some preparing of the environment that we need to do. The first thing you need to do is install PHP 7.4 and other extensions that you're going to need for Apache and for PHP. Now there are some prerequisites that you need for just running OwnCloud in general. Now some of these are already going to be installed in your Ubuntu server, but we're going to go through the process of doing it anyway so that you can see what it looks like. We're going to install the SMB client, install the Radius server. We're going to need unzip during the installation process, so we want to make sure it's installed. If you want to use HTTPS, you'll need OpenSSL, so let's go ahead and install it. We're going to use rsync to pull down the latest version of OwnCloud during the installation process. We'll go ahead and install that as well. Now at this point, on most of your servers out there running Ubuntu 20.04, we can use what OwnCloud refers to as this quick install guide, our script, quick install script. And the first step in that install process is to set a host name for your server. Now you can just make up a host name for your server, or you can actually go out and buy a domain name and map it to your server using an A record. Whichever way is completely optional to you. It just depends on the environment in which you're setting this up in. I have a throwaway domain name that I use for doing these walkthroughs, and I'm going to do an A record to map it to my own cloud instance, and I'll walk you through that now. So I have replicated.com on Google Domains. Now, depending on who your hosting provider is, these steps are going to be slightly different. But on Google Domains, you'll go to the management page for your domain name, and then you go to DNS records. And then you're going to go to manage custom DNS records, and you're going to give it a host name, and I did OwnCloud in this instance, and I did the A record, and then I point to the public IP address for my Linode instance. Now the IP address is going to be different depending on how you're setting this up, so keep that in mind. And then you would just click save, and it would take a minute for all the DNS records to populate, so you may have to wait just a second. But then you'll go back to your terminal, and you'll set a my_domain variable as your domain reference. So for me, it was OwnCloudReplicated.com, and you would set yours up for whatever your instance is. And then we're going to verify that it's set up by doing an echo command. And then we'll use the hostname CTL command to actually set it. And then we'll verify that it's set. And as you can see from the output, it's successfully set. So now we're going to create an OCC helper script. This will make it a lot easier for us to run the install process for OwnCloud, and the OCC helper script is recommended for a lot of the troubleshooting you may do with OwnCloud that will make the file executable. So now we're going to install Apache 2 along with some PHP modules that we'll need. Some of these we installed during the setup process earlier. So now we're going to update pair so that we can use a Samba message block if needed. We're going to update the channel and point to the newest version. And we're going to make a temporary directory for pair to work in. And we're going to make sure we have the most up-to-date stable version of pair. Of the SMB client. Now we're going to force the SMB client to use PHP 7.4 specifically, since that is what is recommended for OwnCloud right now. And we're going to enable the new setup, and then we're going to restart Apache 2. And now I'm going to run a quick grep command to make sure PHP is successfully installed. And judging from this output, it did. Now I'm going to verify that some tools that's needed for installing OwnCloud itself are in fact on my server. Now Apache is already installed on our server and is running off the default virtual host configuration. So we're fixing to make a config file specifically for OwnCloud that will point our IP address to OwnCloud using Apache as a resolver. So we're going to use this one command to create the OwnCloud conf file itself and to echo what we need into it for configuration settings. And as you can see, it's pointing to the OwnCloud root for the HTML file. So we'll disable the default, enable the OwnCloud config, and as you can see from the output, we need to restart Apache. And now we'll set up our MySQL server, and we will link it to our OwnCloud instance so we have a place to store our users and the information's data. And I'm going to use this one sed command to do everything at once. Now you may want to go in and change the default admin password for the MySQL server. So now we're going to enable the Apache headers that we're going to need. And as you can see from the output, we need to restart Apache again. And now we'll actually install OwnCloud. So first we need to change to the www directory. And then we're going to run this wget command to pull the most recent version of OwnCloud. And as you can see, the most recent version of OwnCloud is going to be a tar file for us, the save space. So then we're going to run the tar command to unpack it. And then we're going to change ownership of it to www-data so we can actually write to it. So now we're going to use the OCC helper script to run the maintenance command to install OwnCloud. And it's going to link to the MySQL database, and that's the username and password for the database that we set up earlier. And it's going to store the data directory under OwnCloud/data, and it's going to set up the admin user for the OwnCloud web portal itself, and the default is admin. You can go ahead and change it here if you want to. We're going to leave it the same right here, but I'm going to show you later how to change it online. So now we'll run that command. So you have to set up a trusted domain for OwnCloud. We're going to set up this IP address and this host name, and that's the IP address of my node server, and that's the host name that I gave it. Now for maintenance and troubleshooting, there's several cron jobs that you can set up in the background. We're going to go ahead and walk through those since OwnCloud suggests to set them up by default. So we're going to use the OCC helper script to set up cron in the background. And we're going to configure the execution of the cron job every 15 minutes and the cleanup of chunks every night at 2 a.m. If you're linked to an LDAP server, you can run a cron job that runs every 4 hours and checks the LDAP users in OwnCloud and disables ones who are not available for OwnCloud. And it also writes all this to a specific log file for you to check. And now we'll configure some catching and file locking of OwnCloud itself. And we'll set up a default log rotation for OwnCloud. And then we'll just make sure everything permission-wise is set up as needed for OwnCloud. And so now you can just go to your IP address and verify that it's actually there. So my Linode server goes to this OwnCloud web portal, and I did admin to log in. And the very first time you're logged in, you're presented with a screen that takes you to what apps you're going to need for setting up the desktop client version of this. Now I'm going to save this part for later in the video, so I'm just going to exit out now. And then to show you that the domain name is mapped, I'm going to open up a new tab and go to it this way, and I get the same login screen. Now if you didn't change the admin password earlier during the setup process, I suggest you do it here. We're going to click on the drop down menu by your name, and we're going to go to settings, and then mine is still admin, and then I'm going to change it to something more secure, and then just hit enter, and this check mark besides password verifies that it's been changed. Now before anybody other than admin can access OwnCloud, you'll need to go to the admin and then users and create a user. And I'm going to go ahead and create a user for me personally, B Morgan, and my email address. And I'm not going to put them in the admin group. I'm just simply going to create them. Now you can create different groups, like you may have an admin group, you may have an HR group, you may have a payroll group. It's that simple to create a group, and then all you would simply have to do is add people to whatever group they need to be in. And if they need to be an admin for it, you can set them up as an admin for it. And you can also change people's password through here. I'm going to change this password from the default that it gave me and just click enter. Now for a lot of you, this may be where you want to stop at because it's secure enough that only people you specifically specify can access it. What it's going to do now is completely optional, but I'm going to set this up behind a self-signed certificate to get rid of this not secure message. Alright, back on my server, I went all the way up to the root directory and I made a specific directory to hold my SSL files in. And I'm going to run this open SSL command that's going to spit out an OwnCloud key and an OwnCloud cert underneath the SSL directory that I just created. It's going to ask for a country code. For me, it's US, a state, it's going to be Mississippi, city, organization name, unit name, my name, email address, now I'm going to verify that the SSL keys are there. And so now I need to tell the default SSL config file to point to the SSL keys I just made. And to do that, I'm going to set up server name, which is going to be the IP address of my server, and then port 443 for HTTP. And I'm going to tell it to go to the OwnCloud document root. And then I'm going to look for the section that talks about SSL certificate files, and I'm going to edit it to match the SSL directory that I just created. So it's going to be /etc /apache2 /SSL /OwnCloud.cert. With this change made, I'm going to exit, save it, and keep it where it's at. I'm going to run the Apache site enabled command. We're going to reload Apache. Then we're going to enable the SSL module in Apache 2. We're going to restart Apache. Now we're going to edit the OwnCloud config file and put a redirect to SSL in it. I'd put mine right underneath the server name. And it's going to be the public IP address of your Linode instance. We're going to exit. We're going to save. We're going to restart Apache 2. And now we're going to verify it by going to our IP address. And first you're going to be met with this, your connection is not private message. That's because the certificate is self-signed. So we're going to click advanced and proceed, because this is in fact our server. And I should be able to log in using the profile that I created specifically for me. And again, the first time logging in, we're going to be met with this screen here. To set up a Windows 10 or Windows 11, it's pretty easy. You're just going to download the desktop app and then manually go through the installer steps. Now I already have it installed, so I'm going to exit out of this. Now you should see OwnCloud down in your system menu tray, and it's going to look like a little cloud. Now the first time you log into it, you may have to look for it by simply typing OwnCloud into the app box and clicking run as administrator. And your very first time logging in, you're going to be met with this screen saying welcome to OwnCloud, and it's going to want to know your server address. So we're going to do HTTPS semicolon / the IP address of our server. It's going to give you some information about the certificate we made. Again, we did a self-signed certificate, so we're going to click yes, and it's going to ask for the username. Now you'll need a specific user other than admin for this to work, and that's why I created my user profile earlier. We'll click next. Now the default is to keep everything in the cloud and only download when needed. Now you can change it to download everything, and you can configure it to synchronize manually, whatever you want to do, but I suggest you keep it in the cloud. And so we're going to click finish, and it's going to show the sync status in here, and right now it's currently syncing. But once everything syncs up, you're going to see OwnCloud down here in your file menu system. And as you can see, I already have one OwnCloud instance, and then I have the one that we just added that's still currently syncing. So right now, no folders are showing up underneath it. But as folders start syncing, it will show up a menu similar to this at File Explorer. Now installing this on Linux is pretty simple as well. Now you go to OwnCloud's page, you'll select the version you're looking for. We're doing this on Ubuntu, and we are doing this on Ubuntu 2004. So we're going to run this wget command, and then we're going to run these commands to do a sudo apt update, sudo apt install, apt transfer for HTTPS. Then we're going to add OwnCloud stable to the resource list. Then we're going to do sudo apt update again. Then we're going to run sudo apt install OwnCloud client. And you should be able to copy all of those and run them at one time. And then once all this is finished, you'll go to the app sources and you'll see OwnCloud. And this is our first time opening it. So again, we got welcome to OwnCloud, what's our server address. And since we have a domain named mapped to our IP address, we can do HTTPS //oncloud.replicated.com in my example, and click next. It's going to ask if you're sure because they're self-signed certificates. We're going to do yes, and then we're going to use the username you created, and then click next. And click finish, and everything's going to sync. Once it's finished syncing, like Windows, you go to File Explorer, and you'll see OwnCloud down here at the bottom, and I already have one OwnCloud instance here. And so now you can drag and drop items from your computer into here. Now most of your sharing of documents or any type of file is going to need to be done through the web console, but it's as simple as clicking on the share icon to the right of the document, and then adding a particular person or adding a particular group. Like if I want to share this with the admin group, I can share this with the admin group, or any of the groups we created. I haven't created any users yet, but you can create a public link to the file and give somebody view access, and I'm going to call this public link test. And you can even give it a password if you want to, so I'm going to give it a super simple password. And then I'm going to choose an expiration date, and I'm going to choose tomorrow just for this example, and click share. And then we're going to copy the link, and then I'm going to go to another guest browser to show what it looks like. And it's going to ask for the password we set up. And because we don't have an OwnCloud account, our only option is to download the file, and we're going to download it. And there's the example OwnCloud document that we shared. So see, you can share an item with somebody that you don't already have a profile with on OwnCloud, or you can create a user profile in OwnCloud to share documents with. Now the way I have it set up, only an admin user can create other users, and right now I'm logged in as myself, which does not have admin rights. So I would have to log out and then log in as admin to create another user. And so I'm going to create Dave in Human Resources. And I'm going to go ahead and put them in the HR group. It's going to make me give them an email. So I'm going to say Dave at company.com. And I'm going to create. And he's already in the HR group, and I'll actually make him admin for HR group. Create other users as needed. Now one piece of note, as you're creating users and trying to share information with them, since we just created Dave, if I tried to share something with him right now, it would not be able to find him because Dave has not logged into his profile yet. The users that you create will have to log in before an actual profile is created for them, for you to share information to them on. So keep that in mind as you're going through. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button down below, click the bell icon to subscribe and be notified when future videos come out. If you want some more tips on how to secure the server that we just created for OwnCloud, this video here will be very helpful for you. I'll see you guys next time.